The misconception is if you have a tough time at work, you need to put even more time into work. You need to work more in order to get more positive feedback. And this is a huge misconception because when you are feeling so down, investing in external factors is not the first thing that you should be doing. Do you consider yourself a high achiever? Smart, driven, highly successful? I am so excited to have you. My name is Julia Arndt and I'm the host of the Stress Podcast. I will help you develop your stress resilience the same way you've developed your workplace superpowers. Learn peak performance tools to thrive at work and in your personal life. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to the Stress Podcast. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm your host of this show. And I am so excited to chat with you today about a super important topic that recently came up in many of my coaching conversations with clients. In today's podcast episode, I want to talk with you about confidence is everything. 3 reasons why you should invest in yourself first. And it's always really interesting to me because every time it seems like when there's a topic coming up in one of my coaching conversations, it's starting to come up in other coaching conversations with different clients as well. So I don't really know what that connection is there, but it really inspired me to share it with you as well, because I know that you need to hear this message as well. In this podcast, I teach you how to manage stress, build mindful productivity systems, and leadership tools to create a balanced life and a thriving career. And in today's podcast in particular, I want you to learn why your confidence and investing in yourself is literally the key to mastering all of these different pieces. If you would like to be part of the next Conversations with Julia podcast, the series where you are invited to the live recordings in order to get coached with me live on the podcast, then make sure to register in the link that I am adding to the show notes. And the best way to support me and to say thank you for these different podcast episodes that I have been recording for you over the last 4.5 years is by sharing this podcast episode with someone that really needs to listen and hear this message today. So thank you so much in advance for doing that. And I know that you have been doing it because the podcast downloads have tripled in numbers over the past couple of months, and I couldn't be more grateful for you. So thank you so much already for supporting me in this. And I would say, without further ado, let's jump into today's podcast topic on confidence is everything. Hi, my dear friend. Thank you so much for taking the time for yourself today to listen to this particular podcast episode. Maybe this title jumped right into your eyes when you were scrolling through the last couple of podcast episodes that I created for you, because you were thinking, yeah, confidence is something that I am struggling with. Maybe not always, but sometimes, maybe at the moment, but usually it's not the case. And you are wondering why that is. And so today I want to reveal a couple of really important insights to you why it is so important to invest in yourself, to be who you want to be and to achieve what you want to achieve. And I want to start with a little story, a story about a client of mine that I recently coached and that came to me feeling a little bit defeated. He's a manager at a big company, and he came to me because he was struggling with managerial responsibilities, with feedback that he had received, and just with overall stress and overwhelm. The first thing that we actually did together was that we looked at his psychological trust and safety profile. If you remember, I told you a little bit more about that in recent podcast episodes, that I did a certification this year on evaluating your personal triggers and biases through something called psychological trust and safety training and evaluation. If you're curious to learn more about that model, make sure to check out the podcast episode with Dan Radecki, who is the founder and one of the co-founders of the Brain-Based Leadership Institute, and who shared with us a little bit more about the work that he's been doing. So once I sat down with my client to look at his specific triggers and biases on why he might not feel as psychologically safe in his team at the moment, a lot of interesting insights came up for him. And one of the biggest ones was that because of the feedback he had received, he put more and more emphasis on his work. He would get up in the morning, and as soon as he got up, he took his phone, checked his emails, and went straight to his desk to start his workday. And also because of his feedback that he received from his team members and from his manager, he started to doubt himself. He stopped investing in himself in the sense of self-care and taking time for himself to recharge. And he just worked. He overworked himself. He gave everything for the company, and it started to really wear on him. He was wondering, why am I doing all of this work? Why am I investing so much of my own time into this company when it seems like nobody actually appreciates what he's doing? He's getting all of this difficult feedback. He doesn't really feel valued. He doesn't feel appreciated, even though he actually loves the job and he loves the company. And he had a lot of fun when he first started. And so we were diving deeper and deeper into this question, and we realized together that one of the biggest things that he was struggling with was his level of confidence. He had no confidence left in himself to believe that even though he received that feedback, he is still a valuable, important member of the team. And I just want us, you and I, to just sit with this for a moment, because maybe this story somewhat resonates with you. Maybe you feel like, oh, I can totally relate to this person because I feel the same way. I work for this company and I'm giving my all, and I feel like I'm working more and more and more in order to show how much value I can bring to the company and to get some recognition and feedback for how well I am doing, but I'm not really receiving that. On the contrary, maybe you're not really receiving that at the moment. Maybe you don't hear anything at all. Maybe you don't get any feedback at all, or maybe the feedback that you are receiving is not as good as you would like it to be, or maybe it's even difficult. And so as you're receiving this feedback, your confidence decreases and the amount of time you spend on work increases, because you feel like, I actually need to do more in order to prove myself, in order to feel better. And this is a really, really important misconception that many of us have, especially when we are experiencing very high levels of stress. So when you're working all day long, obviously your stress levels increase over the course of time, adrenaline increases, cortisol increases, and you don't have the time and you don't take the time to decrease those stress levels. And what happens when you have these high stress levels is that your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that is usually responsible for focus, for productivity, for clarity, for planning, for all of these important tasks that you are actually performing throughout the day, is decreased because your prefrontal cortex is busy managing your stress levels. So as the prefrontal cortex is busy taking care of your stress levels, your amygdala kicks in. Your amygdala is part of the more prehistoric part of your brain that is responsible for emotion regulation. And the amygdala is also responsible for identifying dangers. And when your prefrontal cortex is off, is offline because it is busy just taking care of all of the stress levels that you're experiencing, your amygdala is kicking in and it is recognizing threat. And it is starting to go into all of these negative thought spirals. And you're thinking about how much you see yourself as a failure and how you're not feeling really confident. And so this is a really bad cycle, right? As you can hopefully already hear, because the more stress you experience, the more negative thoughts and feelings you will probably have. And this is absolutely natural. And you are not the only person that is experiencing that. Many of us are experiencing that. When you are tired, it's the same thing. When you are tired and you haven't gotten enough sleep, you are waking up in the morning because your body didn't have enough time to rest and recover. And so you're starting your day with already increased stress levels. And we all know, and we've all experienced that before, that when you are starting your day tired, it is much harder to make smart decisions. And you are making your happiness and your confidence more and more dependent on your external feedback. And so here is that big misconception that I've been trying to explain to you over the last few minutes, but I want to make it really, really clear. The misconception is that if you have a tough time at work, you need to put even more time into work. You need to work more in order to get more positive feedback. You get more positive appreciation. You get feedback. You get appreciation. You feel like you're being valued. And this is a huge misconception because when you are feeling so down, investing in external factors is not the first thing that you should be doing. And it's funny because, like I mentioned at the beginning, as I had this one conversation with my client, I started to have this conversation with another client and yet another client. So in a span of 1 or 2 weeks, I had this conversation with 3 different clients that deeply resonated with this message. And I'm going to give you another example. But the first important part that I want you to take away from this story is that if you are feeling not very confident right now, the worst thing that you can do is to invest even more time in work and less time in yourself, okay? And I will explain a little bit more why that is. So back to my client that I shared with you about. So his esteem, which is one of the attributes of the psychological trust and safety evaluation, was very high, which means that one of his triggers and biases was that he needs that external validation and recognition in order to feel valued. And he thrives off of that. And surprise, surprise, I obviously did a psychological trust and safety assessment on my own, on my own personality, because I wanted to know what are the most important stress triggers and biases for me. And the same thing is true. My esteem need is extremely high. And here's another thing. So I've been doing these evaluations with multiple of my clients over the last couple of weeks and months. And for my high achievers, for some reason, the esteem bucket, the esteem attribute is always very high. So I'm starting to think that high achievers usually have a high need for esteem. They have a high need for recognition and approval and positive feedback because that makes us thrive. And if you have been listening to my recent podcast episode on my burnout story, you know that that was a reward mechanism that I learned very early on in life. When I got that external feedback, when I got recognized with good grades, when I got recognized with promotions or anything like that, I felt really good about myself for a very short period of time. And then I went back into the cycle of I need more and more and more of that in order to feel good about myself. So let me tell you about another client. So in that time span, another client came to me. She is currently getting ready to apply for different jobs. And we were talking together because she wanted to really prepare herself for an interview that was coming up. And I asked her, what is the most important thing that you can do the day before the interview to be fully prepared for this interview? And she wasn't taking a very long time to think about this question. And she said to me, all of the different things that you can possibly imagine about interview preparation, about the industry that she needed to learn about different questions that she wanted to review, about the team that she wanted to learn more about, all of these different external factors to prepare for the interview. And I was smiling and I said to her, do you really think that this is the best way to prepare for the interview tomorrow? Do you think that by preparing these questions and all of these different insights that you think you need to gather, you will be better in the interview and you'll be more informed and ready to go? And she thought about it for a second and she said, yes, I think so. This is what I need in order to feel confident and safe. She also mentioned to me that she had a super busy week and that she had back-to-back meetings, that she didn't have a lot of time to take care of herself, to go to the gym, that she was staying up late and didn't get a lot of sleep and actually felt kind of tired and exhausted. So I said to her, all right, maybe there's something that you're not seeing yet. So I do want to share with you an observation that I've recently had with one of my clients. And I believe that if you invest in yourself over the next 24 hours, that's when you show up the best way possible for this interview. I don't think by having another late night and by preparing for hours on end for this interview, you're going to go into this interview more prepared and more confident. You're actually going to go into this interview probably more anxious, insecure, and most importantly, very tired. Do you think this is the best way on how you will show up for this interview? And so she started to realize what I was trying to get at. And she said, no, I don't think that that's actually the best way possible. Can you tell me more about this? And so here's what I told her. And this is what I want you to take away from the second story. We always think that more work and more preparation will get us to where we want to go. My experience over the last couple of years has been the more time I invest in myself, the more I feel safe and I feel confident, the more I will show up as a confident person. And I asked her that as well. I said to her, if you would be the interviewer and you would have two different kinds of candidates, one candidate that is super confident, super friendly, and super energetic, and may not know 100% all of the answers to the questions that you have for them, and another candidate that is top notch on all the answers, but has super low energy, is not very confident. Which candidate would you go with? And she was smiling and she said, well, I would go with the more confident candidate. And I said, yeah, exactly. We are drawn to confidence. It is an energy that we want to have in our own lives. And so if you want to show up as your best self and you want to be the candidate that gets chosen for this interview and for this position, then you need to invest in yourself. So what can you do tonight as a preparation for this interview? And so we created a game plan. The game plan was for her to do 60 to 90 minutes of interview prep and then take the rest of the evening off, go have a bath, take care of herself. And she also removed most of the meetings the next day in order to just be fully present with the task that was coming towards her, which was to be fully prepared for the interview. And she nailed it. She nailed that interview. And I know, and she said to me afterwards, she said, the most important thing that I did in order to prepare for this interview was to spend time with myself and build that confidence back up by just recharging my own batteries. Because here's the thing. So now we're going to go back into the neuroscience. And so what is happening? So when you are recharging your batteries, when you are taking care of yourself, your amygdala starts to relax. Your amygdala, that fear center, the emotional center, starts to relax because your stress hormones are getting decreased, and your prefrontal cortex can kick back in. And your prefrontal cortex is responsible again for focus, for planning, for concentration, for creativity, for being productive. And you wouldn't have been able to access that if you would stay in that anxious, fear, grippy state of, I need to do the most I can in order to prepare for this interview, no matter if I am losing sleep, no matter if I don't do anything for myself. This is the wrong way to think about that. And that is why confidence is everything. Because when you invest in yourself, people will notice and you will show up so much differently. So let me go back to my first client, because we had a very important conversation after that I do want to share with you as well. So I said to him, how do you think you can build confidence? How do you develop confidence? It's an important question, right? And maybe you're asking yourself already this question as well. Great. So let's dive into this question. How do you develop and build confidence? And what did he say? Of course, with the knowledge that he had to that present moment, he said to me, well, maybe I need to invest more into my skills at work. Maybe I need to learn more things. Maybe I need to have more conversations with colleagues, get more feedback, and develop the skills that they tell me that I need to develop. And I said, okay, that's one way to probably somewhat build confidence as well, right? You probably would agree too. And you're probably nodding your head in approval right now. However, and you know that I'm obviously trying to get at something different, there is something way more important to build confidence than that. And I've already explained it to you just a few minutes ago when I talked about the brain. If you want to develop your confidence, you need to invest in yourself. Because as you invest in yourself and you are helping your brain, literally your brain, to recover and getting out of that negative thought cycle and that fear state, the more confident you're going to be. And so the big question is obviously, again, how do you build and develop confidence? And my answer to that is you do that by investing in yourself, by getting up in the morning and not immediately look and jump at your phone. Because what is happening when you are already in that heightened stress state and you see a couple of emails that just trigger you even more? And they also trigger you even more because you're already in that stress state. It's a really bad negative cycle, okay? So you invest in yourself by not looking at your phone first thing in the morning. You invest in yourself by getting really clear on what needs to get done that day before you jump into all of the emails and pings and all of the things that you have received overnight. You're doing that by really making sure that you recharge yourself first and you are in a balanced state before you jump into your workday, because that's where the confidence comes from. It comes from being connected with yourself. And non-confidence comes from being disconnected from yourself, okay? So that's a really powerful realization, I hope. All right, so let me just pause here for a second. You can collect yourself, see how that resonates with you. And I want to summarize this again. Confidence is everything. I hope you agree with me on this. No matter if you are applying for a new job, no matter if you are getting after that next promotion, no matter if you are trying to meet someone new in your life and you would like to have a life partner and you've been really struggling with that because you don't really feel very confident about that. Confidence starts by you investing in yourself and by having your prefrontal cortex stay in the driver's seat. Because if the prefrontal cortex is not in the driver's seat, your amygdala, your fear center, your emotional center is taking over, and you're having more and more negative thoughts that are not going to help you to be confident. Okay. So it is an interplay of neuroscience here. And so the 3 reasons why I believe confidence is everything and you should invest in yourself first before you do the interview prep, before you develop other external skills that other people tell you that are important for you. I want you to first invest in yourself, in managing your stress levels, because that is really everything. I already mentioned earlier that the prefrontal cortex is also called your creative center. If you want to be creative, if you want to be a candidate or the person that comes up with new ideas, with exciting ideas, you need to have your prefrontal cortex be engaged. If it's not engaged and you're just in that emotional state, you think you're going to be creative? No, you're absolutely not going to be creative, because your brain is basically limited and blocked. If you're feeling currently blocked, it's because you're probably experiencing too high stress levels. You will show up differently. You will show up so differently when you are confident. You will show up differently to the person that you're trying to build a life with. You're going to show up differently to your manager. You're going to show up differently in your team, to your clients, to your family, to anyone and everyone. Confidence is everything. If you want to advance in your career, if you want to get promoted, if you want to get a new role, it is an energetic shift that needs to happen first. There is probably somewhat some strategy that you can learn and apply, right? Maybe 30% is strategy, 70% is energy. 70% is how will you show up? Are you focused? Are you clear? Are you feeling confident? So confidence is everything. And confidence doesn't come from external appraisals, external appreciation. It needs to come from the inside. Because when you make yourself dependent on these external recognition cycles, you'll work yourself to the ground. And I have seen this over and over and over again in myself and in many of my clients, because there is a misconception about where we are getting our confidence from. So I encourage you today in this podcast episode to start thinking about how can you build your confidence. What are you doing currently in your life that doesn't actually support that energy? The jumping into your phone emails right away in the morning, the closing your laptop late at night by having shitty sleep. All of these different things add up. So reverse that. Invest in yourself. I told you this in the previous podcast episode. The biggest thing that I changed as I was burning out was my morning routine. The first hour of the day that I invested in myself. That was the most powerful thing. So powerful. And that's exactly what I told my client to do. We talked about his morning routine. He acknowledged that the first thing he does, and what he has done even more so over the last couple of weeks and months since he received that difficult feedback, was to invest even more time at work. And he recognized that that was a big mistake because he had already high stress levels. He felt already insecure. And with that negative loop, more negativity, he attracted literally more negativity into his life. Because he thought, why is nobody seeing the good work that I'm doing? He was desperate. But what kind of energy do you think he put out there? Probably not very positive energy, right? Desperate energy, angry energy, resentful energy. And so he shifted and agreed to change his morning routine and to start investing time in himself again. And as I checked in with him a week after our first conversation, the second week after our conversation, He said to me, I said to him, how are things going at work? And he said, honestly, they're not much better, but I feel so much better. I feel so much better. I feel more confident. I know what I need to do. I'm investing in myself, and that feels good. And I know whatever is going to come my way, I can deal with that because I have the energy to actually look at these things differently. So I hope that you can see that too. And I hope that today's podcast episode was eye-opening for you in the sense that you understand now that the biggest thing that you can do is to invest in yourself, to manage your stress levels, to take time for yourself. We always use us as an excuse to say, I don't have time for this today. I don't have time to go for my run. I don't have time today to do my meditation. I don't have time today to go to bed at 9 p.m. I still need to crank out those other 3 hours of work. Do you really need to do that? Is my question for you. Or is there a mix? Is there a better strategy? I hope that the two stories that I shared with you today are inspiring for you to take action on your own as well and to start implementing some of these ideas and insights into your own life. If you have any questions for me, you can always reach out. You find all of my contact details in the show notes below. And if you want to learn more about time management, because I think one thing that became pretty clear in today's podcast episode is, well, if I need to create space for myself, how am I going to do that? Maybe you don't feel very confident about your time management. Then join us every Monday at 8 a.m. PST for Plan Your Week with Julia. And there will be 30 minutes where I'm coaching you for free through how to set up your week for success. The link to register for this podcast, or not for the podcast, sorry. The link to register for this format is in the show notes below. And I'm just so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that you're taking the time for yourself to learn, to challenge yourself, to ask yourself deep, important questions. And I'm so proud of you for being willing to take the first step as well. So again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's podcast episode. I am so grateful that you are here, and I wish you a really wonderful rest of your day. Take good care of yourself, create some space for yourself to practice self-care, because confidence is everything.